Still Donald Trump's party, the CPAC conference. We're getting ready to see him today. We're going to talk about that on a roundtable, joined by Rahm Emanuel, Chris Christie, the CEO of Democracy for America, Yvette Simpson, and Republican strategist Alice Stewart. He is the former president, so we're going to get to him later. Rahm, let's begin with President Biden and this COVID package. We saw the difficulties he's facing right now in the Senate. You have senators like Mazie Hirono saying minimum wage has to be in the bill. You lose one Democratic senator, it goes down. How does he solve that problem?
Well, first of all, I think the Democrats will support this package because it has a lot in it that is very good, both for the COVID and the economy. I actually think the minimum wage, if it's not in it, is an opportunity. And that is you can both get it.
It can't be in it, can it?
No, I don't. I think the parliamentarian's pretty clear and the White House is pretty clear. They're going to live with that ruling. But it's an opportunity to build a bipartisan coalition, taking the minimum wage, earned income tax credit, Mitt Romney's idea of the child credit, and build a coalition around fighting poverty. And I actually think you will, and I think the president will have, and this is also a challenge to Republicans, if you think COVID is out of control and the economy's bad, a vote no is going to look okay. But if you think you're getting COVID under control and the economy is coming back, then a no vote on a very popular package is going to come back to haunt you in 18 months politically. And so I do think that this is an opportunity to get the minimum wage and get his entire package done.
But if you do it somewhere else, is that good enough for progressives?
I don't think so. You have to do it here. And I think what we're realizing is that this is a very, very popular position, $15 minimum wage.
Yep.
And if you don't attach it to this package, you're going to compromise it away. We're already seeing Republicans say, let's start at 10, let's work our way up, when we know that this number is already really low compared to what it should be based on inflation. And so you put it on in the bill, you whip your caucus. Joe Biden is saying...
Joe Manchin has already said he's not going to do it.
Joe Biden came in on the promise that he could bring Republicans in. If he can't control his caucus, we're in trouble. He needs to do whatever it takes. And guess what? If Manchin is bold enough to vote down the entire bill with $15 an hour, then he needs to be ready to take the heat. People in West Virginia need this $15 an hour. They need this COVID package.
Why are we worried about compromising away $15 minimum wage? That is a policy that progressives have wanted for a long time, and it's not a timely one. COVID is a timely issue. We need this now. We need it timely, and we need it targeted.
We need all of it.
And Democrats have taken a nonpartisan issue that is important to the health and the economy of this country and made it a partisan issue. And so Joe Biden, campaigning on being a moderate, has put partisanship in an issue that is timely and very critical to the American people.
Perhaps that holds on a minimum wage, but Chris Christie and I have talked to Senator Portman about this as well. The provisions inside this COVID relief bill are popular with Republican voters.
Well, listen, yes, about 40%, right? So it's not a majority of Republican voters for sure. But I've known Joe Manchin for 12 years. He's not voting for it. It's over. He's not, well, good. You know, this is what I love, Yvette, because then Joe Manchin is literally the only standing living Democrat left in West Virginia. So you want to treat Joe Manchin that way? Believe me, we'll welcome him and to the Republican Party.
We can organize all of the working class West Virginians who need this bill. We can organize them.
You can organize them, and in the
anybody.
meantime, Mitch McConnell will be the majority leader again. Because if you bully Joe Manchin around on this, it's hard to be a Democrat in West Virginia right now, especially statewide. And I've known him for 12 years. I take Joe Manchin at his word. He thinks this is bad for the Senate, and he's not going to do it. So this is what I love. I love every Sunday being here, watching these guys argue.
It's great. If Joe Manchin wants to be a Republican, let him be a Republican. We will play a Democrat against him.
That's excellent.
That is
burn down the village in order to save it. That's great.
If we can't get this done, then we can't get anything done. The caucus needs to stick together on this.
The truth is, the caucus is together, is how to do it. I think that this is an opportunity rather than a burden, and I think we're approaching it wrong. People are going to remember when this passes, not that the minimum wage wasn't in it, but that you got actual relief for COVID and the economy, get the economy moving. That is what all the trajectory shows. Number two, I really get this. The minimum wage has to be done.
Has to be done.
And I think Nancy did a smart thing putting it in there because that's going to be all due respect, knowing it's not going to be in the final package. That's a TV spot against Republicans. Florida showed you $15 is popular. Put that package, allow states to ramp off if they don't want to do it. They want to do it at $12.50. They want to do it at $13. And then with other things like that are important for fighting poverty, the earned income tax credit and the child credit, then you have a package that people can come together on. I think it's an opportunity. And Joe Biden, I think showing that he's going to fight, is doing exactly, and I believe this, the Democrats will rally behind the president because we need a popular president. And saying that we're going to threaten somebody, when you go back, 92, Bill Clinton won 50 out of 72 counties. Neither Barack Obama or Joe Biden won a single county in West Virginia. Saying we're going to threaten Joe Manchin only makes him more popular in West Virginia.
You just reminded me.
I'm saying get him on the
threatening
bill
Richard
by any
Shelby
means
in 1992 didn't work out so well.
I was not for that. You were for that. I was against that strategy. That Richard Shelby flipped parties. That is not the way you do that in West Virginia.
We cannot allow one man from West Virginia to control this entire next 4 years.
At the same time,
no more than we could allow one man from Kentucky to do it in the last 4.
At the same time, we cannot allow one facet of the Democratic Party dictate COVID relief. And if you say minimum wage is such an important issue, then it should have been taken care of long ago and stand alone.
Well, in 2007,
but you also need to talk to not just those that are going to benefit from minimum wage, all of the people that will lose their jobs if you force
in
businesses to
2007,
raise the wage.
Here's the one thing that people got to remember. Every one of the Republican leaders voted for the 2007 minimum wage that George Bush signed into law with small business tax cuts. It can be done. Mitch McConnell voted for it. Roy Blunt voted for it. The rest of the Republican leadership in both the House and the Senate that were there in 2007 voted for that package. So there's actually a roadmap that is not hard. And George Bush signed it into law.
Let's talk about the Republican Party and CPAC. Chris Christie, history seems to be repeating itself again. 3 weeks ago, you had Mitch McConnell saying the president bears responsibility for the siege. Kevin McCarthy says the same thing. Kevin McCarthy said CPAC saying this is Trump's Republican Party. Mitch McConnell says he'd vote for him in 2024.
Right. See, let's start with the McConnell comment. To me, that's not groundbreaking. McConnell has supported every Republican nominee for president. And when he's asked that question, he says, well, if Trump's the Republican nominee, he didn't say he wanted Trump to be the Republican nominee. He said if Trump was the Republican nominee, he would vote for Trump. And so that to me wasn't groundbreaking at all. The bottom line is this, George. You know, Donald Trump is not a departing two-term president like George W. Bush was. And as a result, he's got an opportunity to come back again if he wants to. And there are going to be some in the party who want him, and there are going to be some in the party who don't. But what is consistent is many of the policies that were pursued over the last 4 years, take aside the personality, take aside the tweets, a lot of those policies are things that Republicans support. So this is going to take some time. I know everyone's anxious to have a resolution of this issue. We are literally 40 days since he left office. So let's all take a deep breath. The party will work its way through. And when Joe Biden and the Democrats start to put policies forward, there'll be things for Republicans to oppose as
But the Trump presidency was never really about the policies.
No, it was about the personality. And look, while he is certainly a defeated candidate, he is by no doubt the de facto leader of the Republican Party, and certainly at CPAC.
Is that good for the Republican Party?
It is in terms of his base and keeping them engaged and on board, and we'll see that today. From his speech today, he will really focus on the policies. He will focus on conservative principles, limited government, and individual liberties. But from what I'm hearing, he's going to really lean in on appealing to working Americans across this country, every race, every creed, and every color. Now, that is good language, but he needs to follow that up with action, and that will be important. But the key is for not to focus on the personality, but to focus on the policies. And those that are upset with his tone and tenor, they weren't going to vote for him anyway. It needs to be more on the policy.
Here's two things. One, Donald Trump never won the popular vote in any election. And he also lost the electoral vote. Second, while he was president, he never, ever broke 50% in support.
Right.
Third, he is the only president since Herbert Hoover to lose the White House, the Senate, and the House. If you guys want to keep him, have him, okay? Because that is an electoral defeat. Number two, let me just say one thing. The Republican Party got more upset about tweets this week than they did around the policies of $1.9 trillion. The Republican Party built itself opposing the New Deal, the Great Society.
Right.
They are now for spending, but against tweets. And that is a morally bankrupt party.
The hypocrisy of the tweets is clear, but the key
You're
is
talking about Neera Tanden.
exactly. But we can't completely throw Donald Trump off the train because he did bring in a lot of people. We need to keep his people, the 74 million that voted for him that are still on board. We need to keep them and build on that, and that's the key.
What does one man have to do to get disregarded by this party? He is now the president of white supremacists, violent insurrectionists, QAnon conspiracy theorists, and you all are saying he's our standard bearer. It is embarrassing and it is shameful. He should have been disqualified and he shouldn't be able to run again. And here's what I will tell you, as I've said it many, many times. If Donald Trump says he's going to run again, he's going to run again. And I think the signal from McConnell that he's going to support him means that the party is getting ready for that to happen. And it is a really dangerous thing. Not just for Republicans, but I think it's dangerous for our country.
Listen, I think that...
You guys never believe Donald Trump when he tells you something. He's always telling the truth.
Are you done?
Yep.
Okay. I think that
just warning you.
I guess you weren't. Just let me know when you're done. Now listen, George. The bottom line on this, from a Republican who actually knows Donald Trump and knows this party, is that this is too early for anybody to making determinations about what's going to happen in 2024. And so the fact is, every party looks dysfunctional and like a bunch of losing candidates when they lose the House, the Senate, and the White House. There's no way to avoid it. When the Democrats did it, which wasn't all that long ago, they looked pretty bad too. And so Barack Obama came in with a 60-vote majority in the Senate. He came in with a huge margin in the House. 2 years later, he lost both of those. And then, at the end of it, except for his personal popularity, he wouldn't have been the president. So every one of these parties look that way. What I say to folks is exactly what you said, which is we need to focus on the policies and let the personalities filter their way through over the course. I know these guys wish for Donald Trump to come back. I understand why they do.
Absolutely
I understand
not.
why they do, but it's a little early for that.
Actually, because he has legitimized racism and anti-Semitism as part of the political dialogue.
That's right.
Until the Republican Party, which is a house... Wait a second. I said, listen, you are a house divided, your party. And he has legitimized the ugliest parts of anti-Semitism, racism, and xenophobia. And the Ronald Reagan party, when David Duke and others came in that party, rejected and spoke out. And nobody in the party has the leadership or the character to attack that.
By the way, wait a second, though. That's simply not true. There have been plenty of us who have sat out here
and minority voice.
And spoken against it. Well, you know what? That's what happens when a party is divided, Ram. And you've been a minority voice in your party at times. I've been a minority voice in my party. And sometimes we've both been in the majority.
Let's just hug it out then.
What matters is, do you stand up for your principles or don't you?
Yeah.
And there are lots of Republicans
who will continue to stand against principles.
Will continue to stand against anti-Semitism and white supremacy.
Hasn't.
And yes, they have. There have been plenty of Republicans who have.
They have not.
I
apologize. I'm not going to take a lecture on anti-Semitism from Chris, and I love Chris, but I'm not going to do that. Chris, you have a Republican member of the House of Representatives from Illinois. Her and her husband, he's a state rep, who talked about Nazi ideology and legitimacy. You had people on the lawn of the House of Representatives who said 6 million is not enough. Camp Auschwitz, and it did not come to the condemnation of the Republican Party because they are still of the view that the Antifada and others were part of that protest. I am sorry. The party needs to reject anti-Semitism, racism, and xenophobia if it's going to be a majority party anywhere in a country that respects human rights.
And the majority of this party does reject it, and I disagree with you.
And they certainly do, and I will be one to say so. But the key to the party, you say, being divided, one thing is for sure, the Republican Party is united in their full-throated effort to try and stop these progressive policies that Joe Biden is full-throated pushing forward. When he campaigned as being a moderate, he is very far to the left, and that's what
Republican votes for his package.
These are not progressive far-left
Before we go, I do want to ask you about Andrew Cuomo. We saw those headlines this morning. A second person has come forward with sexual harassment allegations. Can he survive this?
No, he shouldn't. I mean, honestly, when you think about someone who's in a position of power like this, and we know we've been here before, we've had these conversations around this table, and you take advantage of your relationship with women, and I believe these women, I always stand with women, then you should not be in a position of authority. And honestly, Andrew Cuomo has had a very, very bad couple of weeks with the issue with COVID and the nursing home facility, and this is just another shoe to drop.
Right. To the core question, one is women need to be heard by all of us.
All of us.
Respected and have the capacity to step forward and be listened to. Second, it has to be a robust and transparent process, not one that he came up with.
So the Attorney General.
Whatever it is.
And he doesn't get to pick his own judge.
It has to have legitimacy, and right now what it is the process itself is being questioned, let alone what happened. And for everybody involved, given that it's a governor, et cetera, it needs robust transparency and a process that has legitimacy, whatever it concludes. And people need to have the space to say what they believe happened to them, and we have to respect that space.
Alice?
And I think the key, Yvette is right, this is certainly troubling. We're hearing from key Democrats. Jerry Nadler says this is very troubling, and we've had state senators, one calling him a monster and he must go. And the key thing is, as Ram says, these women should be heard. We should listen to them. They should have the environment and the space to speak. also the notion of due process for the accused. But what we're seeing is, instead of isolated allegations, potential for a pattern of behavior, which is very disturbing, and an aggressive investigation needs to ensue.
30 seconds.
Listen, I agree with what everyone said about people and the women in this instance. Haven't you heard? These are very serious things. But I also want to caution, there were a lot of people who jumped to conclusions on Brett Kavanaugh and what happened there. And I think we need to hear from Governor Cuomo. We need to be able to hear from him. He needs to have an opportunity to say what happened from his perspective.
The allegation.
Right. And
independent investigation?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you all very much. Coming up, more on the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, an exclusive interview with his friend and colleague from the Washington Post.